Good evening, my friends. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to my live stream. And welcome to the Neville Goddard School of Imagination. So we are simulcasting tonight. I am live here on YouTube, and I'm also speaking live to a GoToMeeting of a gathering of the students and graduates of the Neville Goddard School of Imagination class of 2019. So we're actually live in two places at the moment. And my reason for going live tonight is I have some things that I've been very present to. Some of them I've been present to for a longer length of time. And in particular, what inspired tonight's live stream was some things that I became profoundly present to today, in particular, about this journey. And of course, by this journey, I do mean the journey of waking up, the journey of remembering who I am. Neville Goddard says over and over again, you must believe that you are already the man, the woman, the human that you desire to be. And really what that is that's removing the gap. That's removing the gap. That's you know, he talks so much about the movement in mind, the movement away from thinking of a state to thinking from a state. The movement in mind where you no longer, think of this holographic image in your mind and say, oh, I wish I was this person. Oh, I wish my life looked like this. It's a closing of that gap, moving into that state, embodying that state, and seeing from those eyes, standing in that body, the body that is present to the world that looks the way it does as a reflection of the man or the woman or the human that you desire to be, being present in that body and seeing the world from those eyes, consciously. And we could call that three-eyed vision. So you have your physical eyes that register physical light, certain spectrum of visible light. And then you have your spiritual vision, which is your third eye, the eye of your mind, the eye of your imagination, the eye that sees first, the eye that sees and connects to the energetic patterns that are present that then manifest down out of the higher realms into the circumstances of our 3D physical reality. This eye sees it first. Our spiritual vision sees it first. That's always the case when you're conscious of it. Consciousness of this can vary. In the broad sense, it can vary based on your path of waking up. And in the narrow sense, it can quite literally vary from one moment to the next. Your level of seeing. When you open your eyes and you look at the world, what do you see? Because if you want to see the contents of your mind, open your eyes and take a look around the world. What do you see? You're seeing the contents of your own mind. And the invitation, of course, is to step into that state. Step into the I am the man I desire to be. I am the woman I desire to be. I am the human that I desire to be, the human that I came here to be and to become. It's not a static state, it's an unfolding. It's an adventure. It's a dream. It's a dream with a narrative, a dream with a storyline. And that storyline is a certain level of consciousness waking up. It's what that storyline is. The only way to truly step in and embody the man, the woman, the human that you desire to be is to develop a profound level of clarity, a profound vividness of vision, of exactly who that person is. The evidence of clarity a lot of times can come in the form of your ability to speak about that person, not just about that person, speak from that person. Because when you're clear about who you are, you step and embody that. This is who I am. You speak from that. It is evidenced in your language. As I've shared prior, a lot of times your language is the first physical manifestation, the first physical evidence of your higher dimensional manifestation, your language. Because when you believe that you are the man that you desire to be, the woman, the human, your words are evidence of that state because you're speaking from that state. Your holographic image of this is who I am, which is basically your programming in this form. It's like a software program that you're running. If your physical body is your hardware, then your consciousness of who you believe yourself to be is your operating system. It's your software. And whatever that software is that you've installed over your consciousness that says, I am this person, I am this type of being, that's the software from which your speaking, your language, your actions, your everything is going to be made manifest. It starts with the template, starts with the blueprint, starts with the software, starts with the programming. It starts right here and then is projected out onto the screen of space of your world. And that's why I say again, if you want to see the contents of your mind, open your eyes and take a look at the world around you. That's the contents of your own mind. And if you don't like what you see, change the contents of your mind. Change the contents. Choose to dream a more beautiful dream. I was having a conversation with someone, and they were telling me, when I look at the world, this is what I see. And they were rattling off all of these things that anyone would say, oh, these are the horrors of the world, to use Neville's term, the horrors of the world. When I look at the world, I see the horrors of the world, is what this person was telling me. And I said back to my friend, I said, your dream sounds like a nightmare. Your dream sounds like a nightmare. You get to choose the dream that you dream. You get to choose. Are there horrors of the world? Yes, there's horrors of the world. But if that's not your focus, then it's like, is it possible for me to have a nightmare? Yeah, it's possible for me to have a nightmare, but I choose to dream beautiful dreams. So are there horrors of the world? Yeah, there's horrors of the world. And guess what? I still choose to dream beautiful dreams. I choose to paint the world in my imagination. Understand the imagination is a reflection of my state. The state that I've chosen to embody is a beautiful state. Thus, the beauty that I see in myself is reflected back to me from the world around me. And incidentally, when I look back at my own life experiences, my own life story, even the stuff that I could point to and say, oh, these are the horrors of the world, as evidenced in my experience of life, as evidence of my memories, as evidence of my trauma, as evidence of my whatever didn't work out for me, whatever was painful at the time. If I can look at those events, and with this level of seeing, with these eyes, if I can see beauty for ashes, if I can look at these events in my own life and see beauty, that tells me an incredible amount about where I stand, about who I am, about what state I have embodied. And that's a choice that I get to make when I wake up to the level where I realize, where I comprehend that it is my choice. That's a choice that I get to make. I get to make the choice of what frame do I hang around my physical 3D reality to help it make sense. I get to choose the story that I tell. I had friends reaching out to me this week, talking about the forest fire in the rainforest. in despair. My heart hurts. I don't know what we're going to do. Are we screwed? Help me make sense of this. These are the types of messages I was getting. I've been present to it too. And just as much as I see the flames and I see the destruction, I see the scarring, I also see things I've never seen before. I see people waking up. I see people waking up. I see friends saying, you know what? I'm going to make different lifestyle changes right here because you know what? I can't affect that right now. I can't go down there and grab a hose and battle a fire. I can't do it. So you know what I am going to do? I'm going to take personal responsibility for my lifestyle. I'm going to change how I'm interacting with the mirrors of my world. I'm going to change that, what I see in myself as evidenced by that. I'm going to make different decisions here and now where I do have power. I'm going to take the power back in my conscious, present, perfect present moment. I see that. Yes, I see the flames, and yes, I see that. And when I see both, I realize it's both. And it's in harmony. And it's in balance in its own right. It exists in balance in its own right. And that perspective says more about me and the state that I'm embodying than it does anything about what's happening out there in the world. Because I could tell any story I wanted to. I could focus on any aspect of the spectrum that is this current news event. I could focus on any aspect of the spectrum of the rainbow of ways to look at what is happening down there. I could choose any of them. And the one that I choose says more about my state than anything else, because I'm saying, okay, out of all of these various ways of looking at it, I'm choosing these eyes. And I grab them and I plug them in my head and I say, okay, through this frame, it looks horrible, right? Well, you're literally looking at this little part of what's this big. You're looking at this little part of it, and then you're going to judge the whole thing by this little part of it. Well, that tells me more about the state that you're in than anything else. Your state is your choice, particularly when you get to the level of consciousness where you become aware that it's your choice, because we're not always there. We're not always. I can look back at my life and I can point to times where I wasn't aware that my state was my choice. I wasn't aware. And becoming aware, well, that's freedom. That's free at last, free at last. I'm free at last. That's breaking the chains of bondage. That's taking the power back. Oh, wait a second. I don't have to accept anyone else's definition of anything. Oh, I'm empowered now. Now I can make it mean whatever I choose to make it mean. And guess what that is? That is evidence of being right here, right now, the man, the woman, the human that I desire to be. It's my creative power lies in my meaning making. My ability to make meaning out of the events that are reflected back to me in the mirrors of my reality. And my choice, because that is a conscious choice, my choice of the meaning that I assign is my creative power in action and is one of the primary manifestations of my state. And one of the primary evidences that I believe I am the man I desire to be, the woman that I desire to be, the human I desire to be. There was this word I learned in Costa Rica. It's a Spanish word, ambos. It means both of them. Both, ambos. And it's funny because I learned this Spanish word while I was in Costa Rica for yoga teacher training back in 2018. In the process of yoga teacher training, I gained a different perspective upon reality, different higher level, higher dimensional, expanded perspective on reality. It really activated me on so many levels. It's one of those things where I had started powerfully to wake up on my own and discovering yoga and this is the practice of yoga, which goes way above and beyond the actual postures that most people associate with the term yoga. Most people, when they think of yoga, they think of someone doing a pose in a yoga studio somewhere, and that's an element of yoga. But I'm talking about yoga in the thousands of years wisdom tradition sense. And when I started to be taught that, which is really what you get access to at something like a 200-hour yoga teacher training, it's like, hey, this isn't just postures. This is actually multi-thousands of years wisdom tradition. Oh, okay. Wasn't really aware of that. Now I'm learning. In the process of being introduced to this multi-thousands of years old wisdom tradition, I started to realize that nothing really is ever just one or the other. It's really always both. Pretty much any question you could ask me, I could say yes, and sometimes no, or no, and sometimes yes. There's not really this rigidity. There really is no black or white. It's really all shades of gray on some level. Ambos. Is it good? Is it bad? Ambos. Is it light? Is it dark? Ambos. Ambos. And that adopting that word into my vocabulary, it became almost like a silly little thing. I would ask myself a question that was like this, this big existential question, and then I'd kind of chuckle to myself and be like, well, I know the answer. On some level, the answer is ambos, both of them. More than one option, more than one answer. And again, I share this just to really precisely hone in the point that the answer that you assign, the meaning that you assign, the meaning that you make, when you make something mean something, that is your choice. That is your choice. When I say imagine wisely, my friends, that is what I am exhorting you to do. It's more than asking. I am exhorting you to use your meaning-making power wisely, to choose to assign from a place of wisdom meaning to the events of your life, to create imaginal pictures that are beautiful, that inspire expansion. And I've shared in other places, when you're really contemplating something, like let's say you have a decision about something, or you're manifesting, you're in your imaginal picture, and you're like really trying to get clear on the details. What I found helpful for me is to understand that some things that we contemplate feel expansive, feel like an opening, an expansion. It's like more possibilities. There's it feels like a lift in your energy. You think about, oh, what would it feel like to do such and such? You feel like this lift in your energy, like you get happier all of a sudden. It's an expansion. It feels like more possibilities. It's like your heart opens. And then there's other things that feel like a contraction. And it's like it feels like less possibilities, and your energy kind of sags, and like suddenly you feel a little less happy for having asked the question, oh, what would it feel like to do such and such? You're like, oh, actually, I don't know. It actually doesn't feel that good. And it feels like a contraction. It feels like a shutting down or a closing. Like if your heart is opening in an expansion, it's like closing in a contraction. Now, I'm at the point where I feel that. I literally feel that in my energy body physically. And that took me some practice to get to the point where I was tuned in enough to my energy body to be able to feel my energy body to that level of clarity. But now, whenever I'm faced with a decision of some sort, that's what I'm feeling for. From a place of coherence, I'm asking my energy, is this more possibilities or less possibilities? Does this open up the doors that lead to more of what I want, or does it, divert down a path that has less possibilities for me and less of what I want? My energy body will tell me. I will literally feel the lift or the sag. I'll make decisions accordingly. Even if I don't have any other logical or intellectual, reasoning for why I choose A over B or B over C, even if it's only just the lift or the sag, it's never failed me as a technique. It's never failed me as a technique. It's always been when I honor that part of myself that is either the lift or the sag. If I pay attention to that voice, is it an expansion or a contraction? It's never failed me. It has always served me, paying attention to that voice. So I say that tonight because I'm feeling in the space that there's some of you that are wondering, how do I know? How do I know what's best for me? How do I know the meaning to a sign that is evidence of the man or the woman I desire to be? How do I know? How do I know that the way I'm choosing to look at the world out of this infinite spectrum that I just described, how do I know that this is in line with the man or the woman I desire to be? And I'm telling you right now, it's based on how it feels in your energy body. It's either the lift or the sag, the expansion or the contraction. And if you, when you look at world events or events of your life or circumstances of your life or situations or conversations or relationships, really anything, if you look at anything and the eyes through which you are looking at any of those things causes you to feel a sag or feel a contraction, you need a different level of seeing. You need different eyes. You need to move in mind. You need to tune back into your infinite nature. You need to fall back in love with yourself and choose a pair of eyes to look at the world that reflects your passionate love for yourself on a whole. That's how you embody the man, the woman you desire to be. That's how you call it and say, I am. I am that. Not even that anymore. I am this. How do I know? My eyes. The man I desire to be is the being looking out of these eyes right now in this moment. That's how I know. Choose the level of seeing that feels more in line with your infinite nature. Feels like an expansion of possibilities. Feels like an opening. Feels beautiful. Assign the meaning that feels like that. I love what I said there. Fall in love with yourself. That aspect cannot be overemphasized. I will be preaching self-love until the day I leave this form and move on to something else. And I'll pick it up and continue to preach it there too. Self-love. Which leads me to my sharing for tonight. So this live stream lecture is inspired largely by a dream that I had last night. Literally last night, I had a dream that inspired me to have this discussion tonight in particular and to share it with the broader audience, all of you, my YouTube channel subscribers. Felt right to do so, feels right to do so, and so I do it. In my dream last night, I was taken into a parallel reality, and I was introduced to the parallel reality version of Josiah, of myself. I was quite literally flown into an apartment. And as I walked into the apartment, I looked over at the couch, and there was me, guy who looks basically exactly like me, but slight differences in appearance. And I was introduced to him and I was told, this is a parallel reality version of yourself. This is Josiah in a parallel reality. I shook his hand and I said, well, nice to meet you. Never shaken my own hand before. I did in that moment. We sat down on the couch and we started comparing our life stories. Started comparing our life stories, started comparing our life memories. In particular, visiting specifically the differences to start. Because first I was so curious. I was like, oh my God, I've never met a parallel reality version of Josiah before. And this just really seems like something else altogether. And I have so many questions, Like, let's talk. Like, tell me what were the life defining moments for you? Like, where What is it about you that it makes this a parallel reality versus my story over here, what I'm living in this dream of wake? What is it about your dream of wake that is different from my dream of wake? And we started comparing stories. We started talking about what was different. And there's one event in particular that I'm extremely present to that I'm going to share in this moment. There's one event in particular that we had a very, very different experience of. So on March 17th, 2011, about 8 years ago, my mother committed suicide. On March 17th, 2011. And if I could point back to one earth-shaking event in my life that really twisted my world upside down, unlike anything else, it was the experience of losing my mother to suicide. Put me on an entirely different path, a whole different path. Some of you know this story. I've shared it in other places. Whole different path. And when I sat in that moment on the couch with Parallel Reality Josiah, and we were talking about our respective experiences of life, I learned that his mother was still alive. He was the same age as me, literally a parallel reality version of me, living as far as I could tell in a similar world, terrestrial world, just like this, as Neville says. But his mother was still alive. And I said, how can that be? And he told me the story. And the story was the same up to the point where in my story, my mother took her own life. And in his story, my mother got help. Different decision that took place. So in his story, his mother was still alive. So one of the things that I was very present to about being very different paths, there was a couple other things that were a little bit different too, a couple different decisions that we had made at certain stages of our journey that I was like, oh, I made a different decision. And he kind of shared from his perspective the decision that he made and how it kind of split the paths, split the branches. And there were also certain things that were profoundly the same. We discovered those as well. We discovered those as well. It was interesting to me that I noted that there were certain people who have been prominent people, prominent relationships in my life for basically all of my life since childhood, that were, and still to this day, to be very clear, he also, same relationship, same calibration, same level of prominence of that relationship to this very day in his life. So it's like, yes, some key differences that led to very different experiences and some key similarities. So I woke up out of this dream and I was like, oh my God, I've literally never heard of anything like this before. Like in a dream of sleep, traveling to a parallel reality and meeting myself, shaking my own hand, like it's the same face, same dude, but like different body of experiences, different level of consciousness. Like I'd never had anything like that happen before. I'm not even aware of ever even hearing about anything like that before. It was a wholly new experience. So I journaled about it. In the process of journaling about it, I was like, okay, what meaning am I going to assign to this one? Because clearly this doesn't just happen. Clearly there's an insight for me to gain the benefit of. Now I hope all of you, I fall asleep every single night in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Just as Neville teaches, that is an every single night thing. So I take the dreams of sleep that occur in my reality pretty seriously because I see it as my higher being instructing me on some level of my consciousness about what's going to come next in my life, on some level. It's also what Neville Goddard teaches, incidentally. But I fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled every single night. So when things like this happen, that gives them extra credibility, in my opinion, about the meaning in them. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready to decode this. I'm ready to profoundly understand, why was I shown this in particular? Why was I shown parallel reality Josiah? What was it about this parallel reality, Josiah? Because if you subscribe to parallel reality theory, which, by the way, I'm not here to tell you whether any theory is correct or not whatsoever. I can only share from personal experience. It's all I'm trying to say about this. But if you subscribe to parallel reality theory, there are infinite parallel realities. The human mind containing the multiverse, a garden of forking paths, and every time the path forks, there's a version of you that took the other option or went the other direction, or maybe it didn't even happen to. So it's like literally all of these versions of your experience, like a multi-dimensional crystal that is existing in, well, I can get more into that later, but the bottom line is parallel reality theory. There is a whole spectrum of parallel reality Josiahs that I could have been shown in that moment. So why that one? Why that one? And then I remembered a Neville Goddard lecture that I had been reading. And the Neville Goddard lecture, he talks about Alice Through the Looking Glass, which is a Lewis Carroll book. And it's basically a metaphor for the dreamer who is dreaming that he is you, the dreamer that is dreaming that he is I. And that dreamer being in the dream and refusing to wake back up until his intent and purpose is accomplished in that dream. And of course, that intent and purpose of that dream is to become so affiliated, so integrated, so one with what he is dreaming that it takes on a life of his own and he becomes the dream. And why would he want to do a thing like that? Why would the king want to dream a character, a being into life? Because out of all of the possible options, of what consciousness could possibly choose to experience at any given time, of course, time is an illusion. Out of all the possible options that consciousness could choose to experience, period, out of all of that, your inner being, my inner being, chose to fall in love with this expression of itself, this expression of the divine. The dreamer that is dreaming that he is you has fallen so completely in love with you, with the character that is you. Has fallen so completely in love with that character that dreamer decided to give up all of the multidimensional expanded capabilities and to take the form of you, the character that is playing you, character that this dreamer is playing is you. God is being you. And the reason why is because he fell in love with being you, the character that you are. That unique expression of the divine, that man, that woman, that human that you desire to be, that burning desire that is deep within your soul, that fire that inspires you, that encourages you, that gives you that drive to create. That's where that comes from. That is the seed that is planted within you. The seed that when it comes to its fullness is the fullness of expression of uniquely you, of what you truly are, your true inner expanded level being, your expanded level of consciousness, your fullness of divine expression. That's what that is. The man or the woman that you desire to be is the fullness of the divine expression of the character that is you. That's what it is. And having the ears to hear this, having the eyes to see this, is another level of consciousness. Another level of consciousness. And when I tell you that tuning into this space changes everything in your life, I'm speaking from experience. Because the way that you look at the world determines what you see in your world. So when you change your eyes, you see a different world. It's like hopping timelines. It's like hopping parallel realities. It's literally stepping into an alternate version of you, but you have the ability to do it just within yourself. You don't have to go somewhere to do it. You don't have to talk to somebody to do it. You can be taught how to do it. I mean, part of what I'm doing in this moment, but the bottom line is that it all occurs within you. It's not outside of you. You get to choose the being that you're expressing. And really what that is that's the shades, that's the spectrum. That being can express any possible way. So let me ask you a question. What is the most beautiful way that you can express the divine being that you are? What is your most beautiful expression? That is what you are here to create, to make manifest from the higher dimensions into the physical 3D reality. It's literally why we're here doing this right now. It's a perfect, never-ending present moment. It's the whole reason we're having this experience. The whole reason we're incarnated into this form, doing this, is to be that fullness, to have the experience of waking up to that fullness. A seed doesn't pop out of the ground and it's instantly in bloom. No, it's a process. Your expansion to fullness occurs the exact same way. It is a growth. It is a development. It's coming into harmony. It's coming into bloom. It's bearing fruit. And that's what I mean when I talk about inspired to greatness. Because there's only one being that you're trying to be. And that's the most beautiful expression of you. So why was I shown parallel reality version of Josiah? Why was I shown parallel reality version of Josiah's life? Why was I shown the differences and the similarities? So that I could become profoundly present in this moment, so present to where it inspires my sharing with you, my other selves pushed out in this moment. So I could become so profoundly aware that it was this Josiah that my inner being fell in love with. Passionately, to the point where it inspired me taking this form in this life with this chain of events, with this life story, to bring this seed to fullness of expression. I would not have traded lives with parallel reality Josiah. I wouldn't have. I was profoundly present to that as well. I was like, all right, well, you made the decisions that you made. I made the decisions I made. And I am so glad I made the decisions that I made. You had the story play out that you had play out. I had the story I had play out. You know what? Yes, mine included a very painful, traumatic event. But you know what? I see the beauty in it because those are the eyes through which I see. I see the beauty in it. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Because I'm in love with this story. I'm in love with me. I'm in love with the idea of bringing my expression to fullness. And if you're hearing my words in this moment, I am your inner being speaking to you right now. It's just as true for you as it is for me. I am you. You are me. Self-love isn't something you do once. It's not an activity you undertake. It's a way of being. It's a fullness of expression. Self-love is a fullness of expression, a way of being. It's a habit and practice of mastery. Imagine wisely, my friends.